Picture a world in which a modest pawn shop turned into a worldwide phenomenon, turning common people into well-known figures. That world was developed by the old guy, Richard Harrison. But what did Austin Russell, the endearing Chumlee who was like family but not blood, really inherit from his long shadow? You may be surprised by the response. Going far beyond money and into the core of his fame and existence. In 1981, Richard Harrison opened his first pawn business, not as a large upscale business, but rather as a little 300-square-foot establishment on Las Vegas Boulevard. He put forth a lot of effort every day to realize his lofty goal of creating something unique. The entire company and Chumlee's opportunity to be involved in it would not have existed without Richard's original vision and tenacity. The business was mostly there because of Richard, and it served as the backdrop for Chumlee's surprising inheritances. It took some time for the pawn business to become quite successful. There were several obstacles for Richard and his son Rick to overcome. At 1986, after 5 years at the tiny business, they relocated to a larger structure on Fremont Street. Richard received a special authorization to purchase and sell used products in 1987, just 1 year later. However, in 1988, their lease expired. They were compelled to take a risk as a result. Relocate to the largest pawn shop in Las Vegas, which is less than 2 miles from the well-known Strip. We are all familiar with this store today. The thorough account of the store's relocations and license issues demonstrates how they continued to overcome obstacles and adapt to the times. Rick and Richard persisted. This indicates that Chumlee was given more than simply a workspace. Rather, it was a model of how to manage a company with resilience and astute planning. Even if it wasn't taught in a classroom, this delivered him a fundamental business lesson. In those days, obtaining a pawn license in Las Vegas was quite difficult. According to a 1955 rule, new pawn licenses could only be issued if the city's population reached 250,000. There were barely 20,000 or so people in Las Vegas when Richard and Rick first started. For over 2 years, Rick called the municipal statistician once a week to inquire about the population census. The population eventually surpassed 200,000 in 1988 and 250,000 in 1989. They received their license following a few court battles. For them, this was akin to winning the lotto. Extreme perseverance is demonstrated by the years-long battle for the pawn license, during which Rick called once a week. When Richard lost $1 million in real estate, he decided to go to Las Vegas in 1981 with just $5,000. He had a long-term plan for the pawn business and was prepared to start anew. Despite not being born into the Harrison family, Austin Russell, who everyone knows as Chumlee, grew up next to them. When they were young, he became close friends with Rick's son and Richard's grandson, Corey Harrison. Because of how close they were, Rick thought of Chumlee as a son. He was constantly in the vicinity of the gold and silver pawn store. Even as a young boy, Chumlee was involved in the family business informally from the beginning, as evidenced by the frequent mentions that he was Corey's boyhood friend, Rick's son, and had been around the store since he was a child. This was not an interview for a job. It simply occurred organically. This demonstrates that Chumlee's inheritance began long before he was an official employee, as he was exposed to and learned from the lifestyle of the Harrison family and the pawnshop industry. It indicates that he received instruction that went beyond job training and was more in-depth and individualized. Chumlee formally began working for the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in 2003, the year he turned 21. Prior to the TV series Pawn Stars even starting to film in July 2009, he worked there for 5 years, working behind the counter, evaluating items that customers brought in, transferring stuff into storage, and creating tickets for items the store purchased were all part of his everyday responsibilities. An important part of Chumlee's education was provided by Richard the Old Guy. Rick Harrison gave Chumlee a chance after initially stating that he wasn't pleased about hiring one of Corey's friends. Richard taught Chumlee many important things and treated him like family. According to Chumlee, he could always rely on Richard to correct him or make him laugh. Chumlee's development was greatly aided by this instruction. Richard showed that he cared about Chumlee more than just as a boss by treating him like family and being willing to give him a chance even if he initially didn't want to. The fact that Chumlee could always rely on him to correct him or make him laugh points to a comprehensive education that went beyond business advice to include rules, life lessons, and emotional support. Rick Harrison spent 4 years pitching the idea for a television program about the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, but it proved unsuccessful. Then, in 2008, a business named Left Field Pictures emerged and recognized the opportunity. Their goal was to create a reality program about a pawn store in Las Vegas. It was taken up by the History Channel, which modified the concept to add specialists who would inspect the objects and display the staff members' personalities. Originally titled Pawning History, the program was renamed Pawn Stars. It began in July 2009 and gained immense popularity very fast. In just 10 weeks, it became the History Channel's highest-rated program and the second most-watched reality TV program, after Jersey Shore. Richard was the primary man behind the business, and first, he didn't want to film, but Rick pitched the show. His decision to concur and his unwavering presence, however, were crucial to the genuine family feel of the presentation. Richard went on to say that acquiring this TV show was the greatest thing he had ever done. Richard's gift of fame to Chumlee is a direct result of his efforts in establishing the business, even though he initially didn't want to be on the show. This indicates that Richard's long-term hard work at the shop and his unique personality were important to why the show was so popular. Chumlee was just an ordinary employee at the pawn shop prior to Pawn Stars, but everything changed because of the show. He immediately won over fans with his eccentric demeanor, sense of humor, and easygoing manner. Millions of Americans adored him after he became the breakthrough star. He became so well known that he actually outsold the other cast members in terms of sales of T-shirts and novelty goods. In order to market these goods, he even founded his own business. The success of the program, which in turn depended on Richard's business foundation, is closely related to Chumlee's ascent to become a well-known face in America, a breakthrough cast member, and a fan favorite. Chumlee made good use of his celebrity, as seen by the fact that his goods sales exceeded those of other cast members. This links Richard's platform to Chumlee's financial success and personal brand, establishing fame as a significant, albeit indirect, bequest. Fame brought with it new difficulties. Thousands of people line up every day to visit the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which has grown to be a popular tourist destination. As a result, Chumlee, Rick, and Corey were no longer able to operate the front counter. Fans would swarm them, snapping photos of them, and even unwary shoppers. Because of privacy restrictions, this led to legal issues. They were all forced to go to office duty, which was farther from the shop's front. With all the fame, Chumlee's everyday job became too much for one person to handle, so he also needed personal help. Due to fan throngs and privacy concerns, front desk employees were moved to office duty. And the requirement for one-on-one support underscores the unforeseen issues that accompanied celebrity. At the shop, Chumlee made some serious mistakes, but Richard, the elderly man, was always understanding. An expensive upright foundation that was worth considerably more was once pawned for $700, long before the TV show. When Chumlee unintentionally knocked it over, it broke into numerous pieces. He scooped up the pieces, placed it in a box, and marked it as the pawned item without notifying anyone. Unaware of what had happened, Corey gave the owner the package when he returned. When he discovered his base in 1,000 pieces, the man was astonished. The shop had to spend $20,000 to replace the precious and unique instrument because of this error. Richard did not dismiss Chumlee, despite Corey saying it was his worst move ever and that it might have cost him his job. Chumlee can learn a lot from Richard's deed of forgiveness, which demonstrates a profound degree of concern and faith in second chances. It implied that Chumlee was more to Richard than his flaws. He recognized value and promise. Richard also let Chumlee to shoot a blunderb, an antique firearm that the store purchased to showcase. Chumlee's own upper arm was scarred when he shot it, while Corey's arm was scorched by the smoke and flames. Chumlee would never forget this moment. Richard's desire to let Chumlee try things, even dangerous ones, despite the fact that it led to a burn, demonstrates a different form of teaching. Even if it caused some discomfort, the goal was to learn by doing. With permission from Richard, Chumlee gained first-hand knowledge of the products in the store through this practical, hands-on experience. Additionally, it demonstrates the faith that Richard had in Chumlee by letting him participate in these special occasions. The elderly man also taught Chumlee important negotiating techniques. He saved $15,000 off the $100,000 price of a Maserati, a high-end sports automobile, by using these abilities to purchase it for $85,000. This demonstrates how Chumlee was able to make wise financial decisions in his own life by inheriting Richard's business acumen. This is a glaring illustration of a useful ability Chumlee inherited, enabling him to apply the insights he learned from Richard to strengthen his own financial position. Chumlee and his family were essentially prohibited from attending garage sales nationwide which was one of the most unexpected consequences of their notoriety. Those who knew them assumed they would try to get something worthwhile at a low price or try to get goods for too cheap. Rick even claimed that when he inquired about a picture he loved, a woman reportedly snatched it away and told him it wasn't for sale. Although this could appear to be a drawback, it demonstrates the enormous scope of the notoriety Richard contributed to. It indicates that Chumlee's public persona, which was created by the show, grew so powerful that it had an unforeseen impact on his day-to-day existence. This demonstrates how profoundly Chumlee's life was altered by the play and the old man's influence, even in seemingly insignificant details. The show also gave Chumlee the opportunity to meet rock musician Jon Bon Jovi, among other incredible encounters. The boys received front-row tickets and an invitation to Jon Bon Jovi's concert. Chumlee even had the opportunity to invite a companion. They received an invitation to meet Jon Bon Jovi's family and children backstage. He gave us front-row tickets, so we went to his meet and greet to meet his kids because they wanted a picture with us, Chumlee added. That was pretty awesome. When does Bon Jovi personally invite you to his show? This is another special legacy, the chance to meet a great celebrity that comes directly from the show's success. It demonstrates how Richard's contribution to the show's success gave Chumlee access to experiences that she might not have otherwise had. This emphasizes the indirect but noteworthy advantages of the old man's business-related fame. Austin Lee Russell, Chumlee's real name, was born on September 8, 1982, in Henderson, Nevada. Since his face and chin resembled Chumlee, the walrus from the vintage animated series Tennessee Tuxedo, he was given the well-known nickname Chumlee when he was around 12 years old. He experienced several hardships as a child, such as bullying due to his weight, but his passion for comic books and video games brought him solace and helped him form close friendships. He was formed by his early years, and his friendship with Corey Harrison and the Harrison family was crucial to his rise to fame on television. This history demonstrates that Chumlee's path was not always straightforward, but his hobbies and connections enabled him to navigate his way and ultimately establish a connection with the company that would bring him fame. Chumlee has experienced his fair share of legal issues. His house was raided as part of an inquiry in March 2016. Police discovered numerous guns, Xanax, marijuana, and crystal meth during the search. A few of these firearms lacked registration. The following day, he was freed on bond after being arrested. He was charged with 20 major offenses, including drug and weapon counts, later in May 2016. He made a bargain with the help of his lawyer. He entered a guilty plea to both a minor drug possession charge and a felony firearms charge. Instead of going to jail, he would receive 3 years of probation and treatment as part of this agreement. Due of insufficient evidence, theme charges were not prosecuted. He was forced to surrender his weapons to the authorities. The judge cautioned him that the serious offense would be dropped from his record, leaving only the minor one if he remained out of trouble until 2019. He could spend 2 to 5 years behind bars if he got into problems again. He subsequently claimed that he needed to make better decisions because confronting the consequences of his behavior exacerbated his anxiousness. During this tough period, Chumlee revealed a new side as a man attempting to overcome his own shortcomings. Because they saw his difficulties as an opportunity for a comeback story, the History Channel even considered continuing to sponsor him. This demonstrates that despite his legal troubles, Richard's initial connections and platform from the show continued to influence his course. Chumlee concentrated on improving his health following his legal issues. He had been battling his weight for a while. In January 2019, he weighed 350 pounds. He made the decision to have gastric sleeve surgery, which involves removing the majority of the stomach, in February 2018. Following the procedure, he shed 10 pounds and set a goal to drop below 170 pounds. He weighed 190 pounds and had shed 160 pounds by October 2021. He stated that he wanted to change since he was sick of battling his weight. He began a sober path and made a commitment to a healthy lifestyle, which included eating clean and exercising frequently. In 2014, his friend, Corey Harrison, underwent weight loss surgery and shed about 200 pounds. Chumlee has inspired others by sharing his story on social media. This metamorphosis reflects a deeper maturity that came with his experiences and demonstrates his strength and drive to better himself. It shows that the difficulties he encountered, such as the public scrutiny brought on by his celebrity, forced him to undergo substantial personal development, a type of self-improvement that can be traced back to the forgiveness and life lessons Richard gave him. Chumlee has launched new companies using his notoriety. He launched Chumlee's Confectionery, a confectionery store, on the Billvid in May 2017, directly across the street from the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. Together with his younger brother, Sage Russell, he owns the store. The store sells bulk candy, Chumlee's favorite candies, and vintage sweets like Turkish taffy and sugar cigarettes. Big League Chew bubblegum was the best-selling item on its opening day. Chumlee has also discussed producing his own line of branded candies, such as Rick's Gold Bars and Chumlee Lollipops. This demonstrates his spirit of entrepreneurship and how he is leveraging his public persona to develop new revenue streams. Sales of his stuff, such as novelty items and branded apparel, have outperformed those of other Pawn Stars cast members. He even sold Rick Harrison part of his novelty item manufacturing business in 2010 for $155,000. Therefore, the pawn shop may assist in better managing the orders. In addition to expanding the market for his merchandise, this move was a wise business move that strengthened the foundation Richard helped establish. Despite his death in 2018 following a protracted battle with Parkinson's disease, Richard Harrison's influence on Chumlee endures. Richard did not specifically name Chumlee in his will, and he left the majority of his wealth and company to his son Rick. However, Chumlee consistently claimed that Richard was like family to him. He wrote on Twitter that Richard played a significant role in his life, treated him like family, and gave him lifelong lessons. He remarked that Richard could always be relied upon to correct him or make him laugh, and that he would miss him terribly. This demonstrates that Chumlee's greatest inheritance was not cash or material possessions, but rather Richard's close personal relationship, guidance, and life lessons. The story of Chumlee's transformation from a boyhood pal to a well-liked TV personality and businessman is closely related to Richard Harrison, the elderly guy. Richard gave Chumlee something much more important than money or property, even though he did not directly leave him either: a business foundation, a stage for celebrity, and, above all, a lifetime of guidance, tolerance, and unfailing support. These are the real gems Chumlee got from the elderly guy, and they shaped his success and life in ways that money could never.